and welcome to Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word. I'm Darla Phillips, a host and producer, along with fellow screenwriters Sarah Hopkins and Rebecca Williams Spindler. Join us as we share our experiences navigating careers in film and television. Add in the twist that we're women of faith, entering into life's second season, and you might find yourself mumbling under your breath. Good luck with that, ladies. Follow along for some guaranteed laughs, a cry or two, and some valuable screenwriting and industry perspective. Anyone with a dream will enjoy this podcast video. Hope you join in. And remember, we gotta enjoy the journey.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word. We are super excited to host a really fun episode.
Yeah. As
you can tell, there's been a certain film that has come out that we're really excited to discuss, and that is Barbie outfits. We are in our super cute Barbie's outfits.
For those of you that are just listening to us on Spotify or whatnot, we are all wearing a different shade of pink today.
Yes.
And we have pink roses on the table to commemorate. So, yes, we are doing the pink for the Barbie.
So we have cute Barbie, we have Cabana Barbie, and then I'm joking that I'm Gam Gam Barbie.
Barbie and Nana Barbie. I love it. Awesome. All right, well, we're going to dive right in. We usually start our episodes sharing our 3 Fs, and that is from the title. So it'll be Final Drafts, Faith, and Frustrations. Becky, would you like to start with yours?
Sure. So I will go with Final Draft. So I was actually contacted a little while ago from someone that looked me up from something that I did, maybe 2017, 2018. So another reason why you should never give up hope is because if you do put something out there and you never hear back, you might hear back 7 years later.
7 years.
So
There's something biblical. 7 years.
Yeah.
That.
So anyway, this person was asking if I had a particular script, and I said yes, I did. And he asked if he could read it, and I was excited. But before I sent it, you have to take that one more look at it. So even though it's a final draft, and it's been a final draft for years and years, I spent like 12 hours scrubbing it and scouring it and scrubbing it and polishing it, and then I let it go and I hit send. So like you've said in prior episodes, there is no such thing as the final draft.
Never.
You're always touching that up. So
Nice.
That was
Exciting.
it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
That's awesome.
All
Anyway.
right, Faith.
Okay, yes. So on to the faith piece. I know last year in the fall, I talked about my daughter leaving for college and just, becoming an empty nester in our year. And she has left us again. She just moved into her very first apartment after being home over the summer. And so we're back into empty nesting. And one of the cool things that God's really shown me over this last year is just, expectations and what those really are. And I was hanging on really tight to certain things. And my faith has really gotten me to kind of let go. And letting go of my children, letting go and letting God do his thing in my life. So it's been a really interesting last year, and it feels like I can breathe a little bit better now that I'm like much more open-handed about whatever this life is going to be. And I've always talked about seasons, and I feel like my next season is just a season of just so much change that it's going to be a forever season of change. And I'm okay with that now. Before I wasn't okay with it, but now I have a piece that feels pretty good. So excited for my girls launching and doing the thing. And I know you guys have had that with your families too. So I'm just coming up a little bit behind you. You're like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. So I finally feel like
at this stage in our lives, it's always a sense of evolving.
Yes.
Always.
Constant change. You have to get used to it. You gotta let it go.
I feel like I'm finally getting a glimpse of that and feeling pretty confident in that now instead of so like, what is that? Thanks so much. Also, like having mentors and having really good girlfriends that are a little bit farther down the road from you in life with where they're at in their parenting or grandparenting or, the marriage, whatever. There's a big wedding this summer. Yeah. It's just so encouraging because you guys have really encouraged me over the last years.
And then talking about your frustration, which is the passing of...
Yes. I know. So many things have been going on, like
as life goes on, evolves, it gets busier and crazier, and you're involved in so many more things. And so for me, I had to like, how do I pinpoint my frustration? And to me, I think it's how fast time is flying. The older you get, and I remember my husband's grandma telling me this. She's like, "Oh, time moves faster when you get older." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't." But it seems like it does because you're so busy. And so many more people come into your life the longer you're on this planet that you interact with. And it does seem like time just is like boom, boom, boom. I feel like from May to today, so many things have happened, and I feel like I didn't have time necessarily to record them. Like I'm going to become a better journal keeper because I feel like that would help me hang on to some of the things I feel like I'm not able to enjoy them fully because it's all happening so fast. But so between having so reminding me of my horrific tooth issue that took me down, and I think that was May, to finding out how much a little tooth is a lot of your essence in it. Having that tooth gone, I was telling my husband, I'm like, I can't. My energy's gone. It's like my energy left with it. And then being on, I think that was the first time I'd been on antibiotic in like 25 years. So that, put my body through a craze. And then just granddaughters' graduations and children's promotions and visitors and service and so much. So what I'm going to take away from my moment of frustration today is I'm going to be a better daily journal keeper because I think that will help me come to grips with how fast time is going by. There's mine. I don't know if that's a good frustration, but
no,
it is.
One
we can all relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to dive right in because there's so many things to discuss. Yes. I mean, originally we were like, we're going to talk about all of these different things. Then we're like, no, we just need to talk about Barbie. We need to talk about Barbie and all so much, so many things to really dive into. And we're very excited about this. Yes. So, all right. So first of all, we're just going to talk a little bit about kind of the backstory of it, of how it came to be, as well as kind of where it's landed right now. And then we'll do a quick overview, and then we can kind of get into the good meaty stuff. It is a Warner Brothers box office phenom. As of this last weekend, it grossed over $1 billion. $1 billion, as in B, $1 billion.
Who needs the mega bucks?
Right. Warner Brothers did. Warner Brothers did. Right?
Warner Brothers did need it.
So it's really exciting to see a movie like this with a female director and just the narrative and what the story was.
Female writer, director. Yes.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the history of it. I know you did a little deep dive as to how it came to be and the different writers that it went through.
Yeah. So, well, first,
can we just stop for a second and say how much this shattered the glass ceiling?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
First, for female writers, directors, raking in $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
The first,
it's huge.
I think we need to give praise to that. That is a huge thing in the movie industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, when I went to see it, the very first thing I noticed, and I think this comes from us being screenwriters for a while, I'm like, I didn't know anything of the backstory, but I could tell right away, I'm like, okay, this is definitely a pitch first. I don't know. I go like, this was a pitch, because I could see, I'm like, this would be the best pitch ever. Like, if I could have thought of this. Barbie goes to the man's world, to the real world. But so right away, when we got to the movie, I looked up on IMDb to see the history of where this story went. And it went to 3 different production companies, multiple writers before Greta. And I just thought, this story had a journey. It didn't just, overnight, like, ta-da, here's, it was a journey. I think 2009 may have been the first time it was, with its very first studio, and I can't remember exactly which ones those were, but anyhow, very interesting to me that it took a while to find its home, to find maybe the writer that was the exact fit, although one of the writers was Diablo Cody, which I would have loved to see her version too, but I think it went where it needed to go.
Mm-hmm. And then coming back on that, I know Margot's production company was also obviously a big, huge part of that too, and having like that piece of, it's not just the actor, it's not just the director, it's so much in the packaging and the right companies behind it.
Yes.
And you said something really interesting when we were discussing it initially, of just like, this isn't go women, this is women standing on the shoulders of financiers.
Yes. And Greta's co-writer,
Noah
her collaborator and co-writer was a male, Noah Baumbach, who has written with Wes Anderson many times, and you can see the influence of. We talked about some of that maybe
homage to Wes Anderson.
Yes. So I think that was a good combination. So I love that. Yes, this is like shattering the glass ceilings in some ways for women, but I love that it was a collaboration, truly a collaboration of men and women who came together to make it happen. And to me, that's the more beautiful thing for me.
So let's talk a little bit about the director, Greta Gerwig, and just like, you know, how she's kind of come up and why she was the right director for this film. So you've seen a couple of her films. Which one was maybe your favorite, or which one kind of stood out to you?
Well, I liked both of Lady Bird and her rendition of Little Women. My daughter and I both love her rendition of Little Women. It was just a different take on a classic that she put her own Greta spin on it, and I really enjoyed that. So I think she is a today's woman that isn't afraid to put a today's perspective on something classic like Little Women, like the Barbie icon.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And spoiler alert, we're going to be spoiling lots of things for you. So if you haven't seen it,
haven't seen the Barbie movie.
If you haven't seen the Barbie movie, the things that we're going to be talking about were profound to us as screenwriters, as women, which is why we're discussing it. So I guess I know there has been some divisiveness as to whether people are going to go see it or not. But I highly encourage you to go see it, especially after you hear us kind of talking about it and make your own opinion about it. So anyway, coming back to just Margot and her amazingness, and how between Greta and her eye of how she directs to Margot and her, she was just the perfect actor for playing Barbie, and how she did it was brilliant. Like, to see both of those talents come together and make this piece of art was amazing. I do think it's really interesting how Greta's opening scenes, coming back to the spoiler words, like back to like Space Odyssey, you know, like there were so many, it sets such an interesting tone for the rest of the movie, because I was kind of shocked by that opening scene a little bit. I was like, what is this? And even coming back to what some of the trailers were, because we chatted a little bit about that. Like, what was the first thing you saw of this movie coming out? Was it a poster, or was it a trailer, or was it somebody talking about it? Because this thing got some buzz in every single one of those realms. Like, I will never forget the trailer with her stepping out of her high heels and her feet don't change. She's still high heeled.
On her tippy toes.
Yes, and you kind of go, what is this?
Well, the trailer that my husband he hasn't seen it yet, but he says, I want to. And he goes, I want to see it because of this specific trailer. And it's the one that says, if you're a fan of Barbie, you'll love this movie. If you're not a fan of Barbie, you'll love this movie. So he said, now I'm curious. Now I want to see it. So it's for the fans, and it's for people that maybe weren't fans, just to check it out for curiosity's sake.
Exactly. And what's funny about the trailer, the high heel trailer, where she walks out of her shoes and she still has her feet stuck in that position. That little clip, I knew right away, there's going to be layers to this story. Even though it just looked like simple Barbie. No, it's not. I knew it would be layers.
So I'm going to do a quick overview recap of it, just so if you aren't going to see the movie, you're going to understand the context, a little bit of the plot of these scenes that we're going to be talking about. So Barbie, the most popular of all the Barbies in Barbie-Land, and she's called stereotypical Barbie, she begins experiencing an existential crisis. She must travel to the human world in order to understand herself and discover her true purpose. While there, Ken also has a revelation and takes patriarchy back to Barbie-Land, and it's to Barbie and her new human friends, which is a mother-daughter duo, and it's fantastic. They try to undo Ken's idea of power. And in this, they all kind of find their new purpose and their calling as they discover how to be the best versions of themselves now that they have understanding of each other's worlds. So that's kind of a watered down version of it, but this whole idea of Barbie going into the real world and real world people coming into Barbie Land, and then mixing gender and patriarchy and females and feminism, and like all of these, really, again, coming back to the layers. And to do it in the context of Barbie was just, it's phenomenal. So we all went with
Yes.
different people. Like
Mhm.
you and
Yes.
I went with our daughters.
Yep.
Darla went with her husband. So talk a little bit about that experience of going to see it with your husband
Yeah.
versus us seeing it with our daughters.
So it's funny because I thought about what that symbolized, and I went with my husband. It says a lot, I think, about our relationship, first of all, because I don't think he wanted to see it, but he came along with me because he loves me and supports me, I guess.
And you go to movies that you
Yes,
probably
all
wouldn't go
the
see
time.
with him. She's like, you owe me.
Yes, yes. And so I feel like the way I went to see it with my husband, it had an effect on my expectations of the movie. I definitely, I think, came in wanting to kind of have it reflect what my relationship with my husband is, like a partnership. I wanted it to hopefully show that men and women can work together. It fit what I was hoping to see. Like I said, I had a couple times I was a little worried, like, oh no, don't pit men against women, but it ended the way I felt like that it should. And now my husband, he didn't get why Ryan Gosling was dancing.
There's dance numbers in there too.
He's like,
people.
what's up with those scenes? I said, dude, just don't worry about it. But he's a good sport.
Way to go, Johnny.
Yes, you're good, duty.
Now, how was it for you guys?
So
Did you dress up?
Yes.
I know,
Well,
we dressed up too. We totally dressed up. We were pink.
for viewers out there, and these two can attest to it, I am and have been forever a huge Barbie fan.
Oh yeah,
Oh my goodness.
we got photos to prove it.
It's not a Barbie prison. It's Barbie
No,
sanctuary.
It's a Barbie sanctuary, and yes, like 3/4 of them are still in the box. So, yeah, and bless my husband for creating a whole area of our lower level for
pretty
me
epic.
to put my collection up. Anyway,
Epic.
so I have been anticipating this for like the past 12 months, ever since like the first trailer came out with the tippy toes and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, what is this? So we made it a big deal. My daughter and I dressed up, got in the pink, and we went and we saw it on the IMAX, and it was a good blend. I think there was 2/3 female and 1/3 male folks
in the audience.
In the audience, that's at the time that we went, and we laughed. She was laughing with tears at the beginning sequence of the ode to the 2001.
Space Lab.
Yes,
It was
with-
like, what?
Yeah, I mean, she just was roaring, and I was too. And so, and same thing, like, I could kind of get where this is going, the smashing of certain things and whatnot.
Right.
But the point that really was poignant for me as a mom and as a viewer and as a fan was when Barbie was in the real world and she was summoned there, one thing, and she thought that she was there to help a middle schooler, a middle school female student to get back in touch with her childhood. But what she really was there for was for the mother of that middle schooler, and it was the mother that had played with her when that mother was young.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, when she pivoted and she's like, well, I'm not here for you, meaning the young daughter, I'm here for you, meaning the mother, I was just like, yes, yes.
Barbie
So-
came back for me.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that kind of a fantasy? that if I could meet my idol someday, or something that,
Or something that got you through
Yeah.
your childhood.
that you had poured so much of your imagination in over umpteen years and whatnot, and they just end up sitting there in their neon pink cowboy suit, wanting to have lunch with you, and be like, what? So, yeah, I was just thrilled, and that really spun the movie for me. And then I was in tune with America Ferrera's journey, Gloria's journey in this movie. I was her. And then I just felt like, okay, Greta was writing this for me and people like me that grew up with Barbie and played with Barbie's dreams.
Well, I also felt that same thing. You really go on a really roller coaster of experience when you look at how they use satire, how they use culture, how they use these toy icons, and how they mashed it all together to tell a really interesting story that did have those points. You were kind of like, well, who is this for? And it really was, I think, for mothers and daughters, and especially women who are in this world that have influence or have had children, or, to look at the bigger picture of it. And I really loved America Ferrera's character with Gloria, and that was same thing. Like she does this amazing monologue that I literally was just like tears are streaming. And I was like, I feel seen.
Yes.
As a mom, as a woman in this world, I feel seen with that little monologue, which is so crazy to think that this one thing that's for so many years, like and I'm going to be very transparent when I say this, when I had my daughters, I wasn't going to get them Barbies because I was like, that's not real. I don't want them thinking this is what your body image should look like. Like I was very kind of adamant about it. And then I had a really good friend of mine that give my daughter a Barbie, which I was like, well, now it's all over. And they did do the Barbie thing for a little while. And again, like a lot of my body image stuff came from Barbie, you know, like, so it was really, really cool how they pulled all of that in. And that here's this real life person talking to Barbie, like you are beautiful who you are kind of thing. And these are the things that we're experiencing as well. So I loved her monologue. That part for me was just like, yes. And I'm like, again, tears are streaming and my daughter's like, Mom, I'm like, I know. You know, it was just fantastic.
Yes.
Like that scene for me and my daughter was pretty powerful.
We were going to read the monologue, but I'm thinking we should let people go see it.
Yes.
Don't you think? All of a sudden it's dawning on me, we shouldn't read it.
No.
You should go and see it.
Yeah. Honestly, that monologue is Oscar worthy. But we want to talk about Weird Barbie.
Yes, Weird Barbie. Okay.
Weird Barbie speaks to us as well.
Oh,
Because Weird Barbie is the one that has truly evolved from the 1970s forward, because everyone knows that kid that always did the stuff with the Barbie doll.
Yeah.
Even all the way back to 1968 or whatever it was.
Right.
There's somebody that always had the magic marker and the scissors.
Yeah.
And did their thing with their Barbie.
It's your beautician today. It's the girls that wanted to do hair and makeup. Those are the people that did it.
So, I mean, we have to put Weird Barbie up on kind of her own pedestal because she is the one that I think has remained the most stable, even though she's the weird one.
I feel like she represents the wise woman in the village. That's what I saw. Like I tell my sister all the time, we're about that age of being those wise women where you have to go off. You're weird. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say unless they're in trouble.
Right?
And that's what I feel like Weird Barbie was. She was the Barbie that was kind of the outcast, but all of a sudden, guess what? She's needed.
She's the voice of reason, and she's the voice of wisdom.
Yeah.
So
an experience,
right?
Yes.
And so Weird Barbie. So within this plot line, Barbie, stereotypical Barbie, starts having suddenly these thoughts of dying, and it like record scratches everything in Barbie-Land because everybody's like, you can't be talking about dying, which is basically this crisis that she's having, which comes where she has to go out into the real world to like remedy the situation. But before she does that, she has to seek this advice from Weird Barbie. So Weird Barbie, who's played by Kate McKinnon, and she does a fantastic job, is literally that one Barbie that has been played with too hard, like, which means that it was usually like
lovingly.
She was played with too hard. Like she had crazy hair and
her legs were in the constant split.
Yeah, her legs were in the splits. Like it was her just the way that they did that. And so her character, which again is that wise sage friend that is always a little off, but they always have really good advice.
Right.
And coming back to the whole idea of Barbie changing and wanting to either go back to status quo or figuring out how to come out of this existential crisis. And she gives her this really unique way of looking at it that comes from messaging and coming back to that whole thing.
Because she has stepped out of the high heels.
Yes, so she's out of
barefoot, tiptoe.
Well, she's flat-footed, which is one of the reasons that like suddenly she starts having these thoughts about dying, and then her feet fall, and everybody's like, oh, you know, kind of thing. So she knows something's got to change, and she just wants to go back to high heels. And Kate McKinnon's character as Weird Barbie is like, it's kind of like Morpheus and the red pill, blue pill kind of thing. Like she's got a high heel and then she's got a Birkenstock. Yeah. And I mean, how polar opposites when you come from culture and messaging and all that kind of stuff can you possibly be? And so she's kind of like, you can pick one. And Barbie's like, I want the high heel. I want my high heels. And she's like, no, choose again. Like she's trying to push the Birkenstock thing, which I can see when we talk about the controversy of what this film can be, of like pushing feminism, you know, down with patriarchy, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Like, I can see how that would come across, but in context to where they were at with the story, it was a really great way of explaining what those two worlds really look like. And that's what Barbie goes out to explore.
Yes.
So Weird Barbie was the gateway wisdom
Yes.
to be able to go out and make her own choices, experience things in a different way to be able to figure out, which is coming back to Gloria's character. So I loved Weird Barbie. There's
She's trying some new shoes.
right, and there was a couple things that I found just online and some articles about it, that according to Greta, the concept of Weird Barbie originally derived from her own experiences as a young girl in the neighborhood where a lot of the girls were older than she was. And that meant that the dolls that she got to play with were often in a rough state when she got them. So that's really fun. There's some really great things that they pulled into the depth of these characters. When you're watching the film, you're understanding, but again, the layers of what they did to put those into the plot and into their characters, I thought was really, really well done. So that's my little Weird Barbie deep dive. So fun.
I saw an interview with Kate McKinnon, and she said that she literally was thrilled when they asked her.
Right. And then on the flip side of that, from Mattel's point of view, guess what's now in production?
Weird Barbie.
Weird Barbie is. So,
yay.
they were thinking, as much as sometimes Mattel would be looked at as in like the antagonists or whatever, a little bit maybe, at least with the corporation piece of that, they're making so much bank on this and they know it, which is, again, looking at the stab that they were taking with this IP was a big swing, but man, did they knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's my take on Weird Barbie.
All right, well, don't take this wrong, but when I read Sarah's notes and she's like, choose the Barbie that you kind of related to. Okay, this is weird, but I'm choosing Ken. That's not because I relate to Ken. It's because I was sympathetic to Ken. And right off, like we've mentioned, there were layers in the story. So right away, I saw how Barbie and Ken, in my mind, kind of mirrored each other, meaning like Ken in the Barbie world, it's not fair for him there. Like, it's like women maybe in the man's world, that has happened in the past and still happens. So to me, I was sympathetic to Ken's character because I thought nobody should have to be in that spot. Nobody should just get to be beach. You should be able to have options. So, so I definitely thought of how many things in the film that I think were purposely written this way to show that nobody should be in that place. Barbie shouldn't be there, and Ken shouldn't be stuck in a place where you can't progress, where you're where you're not allowed to grow and you're stagnant. And so to me, I think that's why I felt a little more like, oh, Ken. And the other thing I was thinking of too is that it kind of what I had mentioned earlier, how badly I hoped the movie would be about men and women coming together. I didn't want it to be a pitting of,
a male bashing or anything like that.
And so for me, a pivotal moment in the film was when the women, the Barbie and mother-daughter, they're going to go and like put things back in order in Barbie-Land. And I'm like, okay, here's the moment. Are they going to pit the women against the men? And I was so happy they didn't pit the women against the men. But they did pit the men against the men. And that took me to another level of layers in this movie, about how many times have women been pitted against each other and not taking on what we should be taking on. We're too worried about knocking each other down or judging each other, that we aren't taking on the true battle. And so to me, that was another layer that was maybe I wasn't expecting to see, and I was excited about that. I'm like, okay, it's a deep film. You're thinking Barbie? Yes, it's deep. Right. So anyhow, that was I think I was sympathetic to Ken because I really want us to get past. I don't want it to be feminism, or patriarchy. I want us to come together and show how much we can achieve when we all work together. And that's what this film's
the
about.
evolving piece of it. That's what I thought was really cool about Ken's character too. Like everybody was kind of evolving, but it's like evolving is ugly. right?
Mhm.
And we think
And
about
having too big of a taste for power is
Right.
ugly.
right,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, you know, like when you have your middle schooler and they're putting makeup on for the first time, you're like, whoa, maybe not black lipstick,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
let's just, you know, like how do we, you know,
Yeah.
it is, you know, painful to grow, and it is
Mhm.
painful to evolve sometimes, and sometimes you have to take one step forward to take 2 steps back or whatever. And
Yeah.
it was interesting watching them navigate that in a really fun
Yes.
way with lots of amazing numbers. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there was some, again, it was a roller
find
coaster
this quote.
ride of like, you know, comedy to drama to satire to a musical number. You're like, it was like whiplash, but in a
There
really
was a lot of
interesting way.
humor in Heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can find this quote from Greta.
Certainly, there's a lot of passion. My hope for the movie is that it's an invitation for everybody to be part of the party and let go of the things that aren't necessarily serving us as either women or men. I hope that in all of that passion, if they see it or engage with it, it can give them some of the relief that it gave other people. Barbie director Greta Gerwig.
We should all be able to find who we are, and we should all be able to allow that for each other and be happy for each other to have that.
Right.
And so it was more of a coming together.
Right.
Not
and
like-
not competition.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
And what we can achieve when we work together. It's beautiful.
Right. I got that out of it too. That it's not us versus them. It's
Yeah,
let's all be
right.
on the same team.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we can make things better.
Yes. We don't have to
Right.
crush
We don't have
anybody.
to us or them.
Yeah.
You know.
So, well, you know, these are all great characters that we talked about: Weird Barbie and Ken, and the stereotypical Barbie, and the mom and the daughter in it. But what makes a strong female protagonist, right? So let's talk about that.
So I found a really interesting article, and we will link it down below, that I thought was a really nice, quick summation of just some defining characteristics. And it's by Amanda Peterson from her site Writers Write. So there's 6 different things here that she talks about, and I thought it'd be interesting for us to kind of like go
Yeah.
through each one and maybe talk a little bit about something from the Barbie movie that they did really well in this point. So the first one is she has a story goal that defines the narrative arc. So she's got to get possession of something or relief of something, and there has to be important consequences if she does not achieve her story goal. And I really like that she said important consequences, because sometimes, unfortunately, in some female characters, we're superfluous. Like, is that the right word? It sounded really good.
Yep.
Yes.
It's my new word.
Yeah.
Too light and fluffy.
Right.
That we don't have enough concrete.
Yes. You
Layers.
have to be deep to have deep consequences.
Yes.
Mhm.
And,
Yes.
and I feel like, you know, the story goal of what Barbie had to do, which on the surface looked maybe like an easy goal, but if you look at the iceberg underneath that of culture and gender and, you know,
Respect and
perspective,
acceptance.
yes, like there was it was very, very deep, which had deep consequences.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that was well done. And when, again, coming back to it's Barbie, what?
Yeah.
How did this happen? It's fantastic.
So number 2 is she flawed? She should not be perfect. Your female protagonist should not be perfect. There should be, like we said, consequences. There should be difficult choices for her to make and stakes that she needs to either avoid or achieve.
Mhm.
And then, you know, how is that going to help her become a better version of herself?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, just about every Barbie in this movie is flawed. And
Yeah.
there's several of them. You'll see, like,
Yes.
President Barbie and Dr. Barbie
Right.
and, you know, Mermaid Barbie.
Yeah.
And then how do they overcome those flaws? And do they learn anything by overcoming those flaws?
3, she captures our attention. So we all know Barbie's beautiful. To me, what caught me, it's not just the beauty, it's the growth within her emotional journey. And I think that is part of capturing our attention. It's not just what you see physically, it's what you see on the inside. And
I think the first thing that captured my attention about her was when suddenly, again, from her outside real world character, was the whole idea of like, I'm going to die one day.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely. That's
right?
what got my attention
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Is that her struggle?
yes.
yeah.
Right.
Which
I
is
was
gonna be-
captivated by her struggle.
Right.
And
Not-
her deep thoughts of
Right. Not
what
how
is my
she,
existence?
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not how she looked, which
Right.
is
Which is
us all day long.
which is kind of biblical, you know, Adam and Eve, Abraham, you know, biblical questions like, what's my purpose? You know, why am I here?
Yep.
Next is, you know, she changes over the course of the story, which obviously we've talked a little bit about that. And I think it was interesting that in this article, she said, we're not watching a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Her change should be gradual and believable, which, you know, it's Barbie, like certain things believable, but I think that they did a really good job of like how unbelievable Barbie-Land was with the plasticness.
Yes.
Like literally, like she's got fake cups that she like, you know, like plastic cups, and then when she goes in the real world, she can't quite manage a cup kind of thing with actual like liquid coming in it.
Yeah, from the showers too.
Right.
The
So
showers.
they did a good job of balancing the real world of what that was, and like if a stereotypical Barbie is walking around the world, she's gonna get harassed. People are gonna be like, what is this?
Exactly.
You know, and it was very comical the way that they introduced, what we thought Barbie would be like in the real world. And then, but she's figuring it out while she's there, which is what we wanted to see. She's changing over the course of the story.
And part of the change is realizing her own strengths and weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
and having some
Good point.
self-revelation in there. And
Oh,
I think
yeah.
every good female protagonist should have some moment of
Yes.
what some people call the come to Jesus moment.
Right? Yeah.
What's the revelation?
Yes.
That's the next
And
one.
every character did that.
Yeah.
Not just Barbie. Every character in that film did that once they came back to, the reality of it. But yeah.
To change.
A couple other things. She doesn't exist to support another character.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you have ensemble casts like this, obviously it is very intertwined. Could you have written this without an ensemble? Probably not. It would not have had the depth that it did. But it wasn't like bad guy, good guy, kind of thing. It was really interesting how they married all of that. Because honestly, like who do you guys think the antagonist is in this? Because we would say, oh, the Mattel Corporation.
Maybe this is where we should talk about the box.
The box.
But
yeah,
that probably was
that's
the
a good.
bigger message of what this
Yeah.
was.
So talk about the box.
So
when
when Barbie arrives in the real world, she ends up at Mattel headquarters, and then she kind of crashes into the boardroom. And who's in the boardroom? 10 men in suits
discussing
what
a
little
female
girls
doll.
want to play with.
Exactly.
They're talking about what little girls want to play
Yes.
with, and they're 10 men in suits. And who's the CEO? It's Will Ferrell,
Yes.
who is the most clueless of the bunch. But that was what makes it funny,
Sorry,
that he is the ultimate
Yes.
clueless dude
Clueless CEO.
running the company. And then she busts in, and then they've been trying to track her down because their radar is open that she's broke through Barbie-Land and she's on her way there. And so in the back of the boardroom is this big giant pink Barbie box.
Like a cardboard box, like the ones that come in the store.
Yeah, and so they're trying to corral her and talk
Just get back in the
softly
box.
to her.
Yeah.
Talk softly to her like she's a child. Like it's okay. Thank you for visiting. But I think you'll do more good if you just get back in that box.
Yes.
And so she almost is under the spell until she kind of wakes up and realizes, no.
Did
getting
you
in the box
catch
is
what it
not-
was though that helped her wake up from the spell?
Remind us.
So she had to put her hands in where the
Oh, that's right.
the wraps, and so she was like kind of being taped into the
was
box
like,
or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, fastened. She was going to be
Yes, she was
fastened
gonna be
in,
right.
and she did not want to be fastened.
Right.
Yes.
So it was interesting. Like
Shackles. The fastening is
Yes.
kind of
Like
like the metaphorical shackles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that whole idea.
Yes. And okay, women, you're easier to deal with when you're in the box. Let's just get you in the box. If a person's trying to shut you up,
Yeah.
that's not a real relationship. So my granddaughter and I were just having this discussion the other day because she was like, Nana, you and Papa like fight a lot. And I'm like, we don't fight, we discuss. And so I said to her,
Passionately.
yes. And I said to her, I said, I want to tell you right now, if you're ever in a relationship where one person is not talking and not opening up, I go, that's not a real relationship. And I feel like it goes to that scene where it is easy to shut that person up. Just put them in the box. It's easier to deal with you when you're here and you have no voice. And so to me that I was like, no, she's like, I'm staying out.
Jumping ahead, that's number 6. And that's when the protagonist stands up to the antagonist. And that was her standing up moment.
Yes. Right. And again, like these are things that you should probably bring into any character that you're doing, but specific to, making sure that if you do have a female character, that she has agency, which is probably a word to boil it down to what these characteristics would be, that she would have her own agency. And you'll hear that term a lot when you get notes back from the scripts or whatever. If there's certain characters that don't have agency, come back to these characteristics because that will help you figure out what agency they need to have in their arcs and stuff. So let's come back to a little bit about this movie before we get rained on.
I know.
Yep, there it is. Just coming back to, the controversy of what this movie is. And not that we need to get super political or deep dive into it, but there has been a lot of narrative on both sides, and it's felt a little polarizing on both sides. One of the things that I have heard is like, I would never bring my daughter to see this movie. Don't bring your daughters to see this movie. I do want to say I would not bring anybody that was under the age of 13 to this movie.
Exactly. It's PG-13.
Yes.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I didn't understand. All of the previews for the movies that were there were for children. And so that was the part that I was like, what if we're going to have a PG-13 movie, why are you showing a Trolls trailer?
Yeah.
And again, I know that's like the toy side of what the marketing, all that kind of stuff. But I do highly think that if you're unable, there's so much of this narrative that is a little bit of a higher education level, higher brow, maybe if you want to call it that. It's not for 7-year-olds. I wouldn't bring a 7-year-old girl to it. And I saw little girls at these movies, and I was like, so much was over their head. And did they really enjoy what this movie was without understanding that? Like, it did not have that same, like how Disney movies have the whole, like, the parents get stuff that the kids don't get. I don't know if this was one of those movies. That's my opinion.
Well, the whole message we talked about, it's really to us and our generation, and then maybe the up and coming. But I don't know that a 7-year-old or even a 13-year-old yet has experienced, what the
Well, I think
theme of that movie was about.
because one of the characters in the movie is a middle schooler,
Mm-hmm.
that you can bring your middle schoolers to this because there is that representation in the movie. And so, I think that's probably where, maybe you draw the viewership line is middle school and up.
Which is interesting because most middle school girls aren't playing with Barbies anymore.
And that's why she called her a fascist.
Which is, right? Like, there is a lot to unpack with some of the topics that are talked about, which is why it's probably very controversial.
Yes.
So what are some of your thoughts?
Just go see it. I go, don't take your kids, but at least go see it so you can get your own perspective on it. Don't just read what someone else has to say about it or listen to someone else's commentary, because I feel like a lot of people shut off before the message of the movie came through, at least, and I could see how they could have, because even I wasn't going to shut off because that's not what I do, but I definitely was like, hey, okay, how's this going to go? Yeah. And I feel like the message was a good message. But you had to hang in, and you had to have an open mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree with that too. And I highly suggest people go see it without reading up on it first.
Good luck avoiding any.
Well, some people
But you're right.
But
you're right.
I think, go to it with an open mind and an open imagination. Because it really does stir your imagination. And, whether you're a fan or not a fan of Barbie, I think. And get ready to have a good laugh.
Yes.
Because and if you need a good laugh, go see this movie.
Right.
We all need to have the endorphins from having a good laugh once in a while.
Yeah.
So
That's right. And knowing, what satire is and how they
and it's
view
an art
satire.
form, like you said.
And it is like that's where you can't sit in a camp when you talk about art, because we all have different perceptions of what messaging we're getting from that or what we're taking away from it. Again, like I have moms that are like, I literally typed out America Ferrera's monologue and it's on the fridge now. Like they're like, I needed to see this, I needed to hear that. Where other people were like, oh my gosh, I loved Barbie when I was a kid and I collected them. I just got to see her on the big screen in a live action film. Like, that's huge. So cool. We're really excited that you guys could join us today. We're going to blow away.
Yeah.
Camera might get struck by lightning.
Yes. Or the microphone.
Exactly. We're super excited that you guys spent a little time with us. Go see the Barbie movie if you want. And if not, that's okay too. But we had a really great time discussing it. So we're getting wet. All right. See ya.
Well, you made it through another episode. Thanks for joining in. For more information on our podcast and videos, be sure to check out our Facebook page with the same title, Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word. This episode of Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word was filmed and recorded in Oshkosh, Bagash.